Evening, everybody. YouTube just seems to be deteriorating more and more each day, and I can't quite figure it out. I see that this whole live chat, or not live chat, this events thing is going to be going away as well. So we'll see how that goes. Makes me nervous. For some reason, I can't pop out chat here. Anyway, don't know why that's not happening. Sorry about this, everybody. At least you had a little bit of music to get you through that there. I picked up, there's a guy, Todd Barton, who I watch. He's got a YouTube channel as well, and I've got another recording of his as well. So we had this Shakuhachi album, Row. It's like a reissue, a re-release of it. Really, really nice stuff. He was kind enough to send me another tape, and that's what I was just listening to. Far Gone, Solstice 1, Zenithal Arc. And these are, I believe they're both put out by the same, no, maybe not. Flying Moonlight is the record label, tape label for this Far Gone. And then Row is, oh yeah, no, Row is the same thing. So they're both from the same. You can find that stuff on Bandcamp, just like most of the stuff I've been listening to these days. Let's try popping out this chat one more time, see what happens. Well, whatever. It's not going to happen, so we won't worry about it. So let's do this. Let's do that. It's really just ridiculous. Sorry, just give me, let's try this one more time here. Turn this on for a sec for you. Nah, whatever. Okay. Anyway, I just felt like having a quick little chat. I'm not really sure for how long, but we'll start it off on a positive note. Managed to get down to book fair this afternoon and picked up the final issue of, I believe it's final issue. It was only going to be 4-issue series, right? Little Bird. Picked up the final issue of that. I still haven't read the other two because I have yet to find a copy, even a second printing or whatever printing they're on, for issue number 1. So I haven't sat with these yet. So when I find that first issue, I'll dive in full full bore. I plan to double dip on that. I don't know if I showed this already, but I got my hard copy of House of Penance as well. Kind enough to order it in for me at Comic Factory. Greasy hands. Just put a greasy mark. Whatever. Kind enough to order it at Comic Factory, which is the shop down by my place. It's great having it a little bit oversized. I haven't sat and read this again yet, but who knows? Maybe I'll do a double bill, reread House of Penance, and then read Little Bird in its entirety. The other thing that I picked up today, the last couple of Comics Journal that Greg had for me at Mulvey Flea Market. I've been kind of picking them up. He had a stack of them for me. And I kind of picked them up over the last couple of months. These were the last two that he had for me. Issue number 37, which was the first. So what was it? Issue 27 is when Gary took over the Nostalgia Journal. It then changed. I think it was at 27 that it changed to the new Nostalgia Journal when Gary took it over. And then I believe it was issue 32. It changed its name to the Comics Journal, and it was kind of a newspaper format, I guess, from what I can see. And then 37. So this was the first issue where it kind of became a magazine. So it was just magazine sized. So 37 and 38. So those are really, really great. I started flipping through those already pretty much. Well, not actually as soon as I got home, but this evening I started flipping through those. Puts me at over, I don't know, 80 something issues, which is fantastic. I've got most from this early run, even into the hundreds, so that's pretty great. Reorganized the old journal box here. It's full. And then this is the journal stack that didn't fit into the box. So looking at kind of a box and a third of Comics Journal. Just entertaining, super, super interesting to read. As you well know, I've raved about them many times. Those were the only really things there to have a chat about. There was a video posted on the Winnipeg Comic Addicts site of Stan Lee's visit to Winnipeg in 1986, I believe Styx Comics. And so it was a little news piece that they had posted, a little news piece that was televised CBC. I believe it was from CBC. And really, really cool to see. Had a look to see if there was anybody I knew in it, because one of the people that was there was my brother. And this was something that he had gotten signed for me. I think he got something signed as well. I don't remember exactly why I didn't go. I don't remember much about it. He was going with a friend of his parents, I believe, and I think I gave him this to get signed for me, which I still had on the shelves, and there's Stan's autograph. Now, I was looking at it and thinking, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that says Stanley 1986. But when talking to the guys or one of the guys specifically on the Facebook group, he was saying, no, it's 86, because I don't think he was here in 1988. And he said his 6 is just end up kind of looking like an 8 the way he was signing things. So that was a nice little bit of nostalgia seeing that video posted again. So maybe we'll talk about this first. So the other day I went and I saw Midsommar. I'm going to call it Midsommar. So it's Ari Aster, his new movie. Ari Aster is the fine gentleman who did the movie Hereditary that completely twisted my head around, and upset the shit out of me, surprised the hell out of me, and blew me away all at the same time. So before I kind of get into this stuff, I'm going to try my best not to give any spoilers of either of them, even though Hereditary has been out for well over a year. I believe I've chatted about it briefly on here before. I would strongly recommend just checking it out. I think it would have been an experience seeing it in a theater. And I'm going to try to do the same for Midsommar, not spoil it since it hasn't been out for a while. But I mean, I can't make you any promises. So if you like to go into these things dry, if you really want to see this movie, it's probably best that you tune in next video, just in case. So, I, part of this kind of comes from having high hopes. For sure, there's no doubt about it. It's hard to go into something like this and not have those high hopes, especially when someone's first kind of feature that I was exposed to, and I think first kind of feature. I think before that he only did shorts, if I'm remembering correctly. When it has such an impact and it's done so well, and it's just an incredible movie that really is kind of unlike anything I've ever seen before, which is a super unique experience. I think it's impossible not to have a little bit of high hopes because it really seems to be presenting a voice that has potential, and especially something that's now kind of, Hereditary is kind of in the mainstream. Midsommar is now full on in the mainstream, just full on. So whatever the case, it's pretty fantastic that kind of masses of people who would never even consider going to see something like this will now go to see this based on Hereditary and based on the buzz that created, and just get their minds fucked going to see this movie in the theater, or whatever they're gonna. And I'll talk about that reaction, what potential reactions I think are going to be, and the issue with those reactions in my mind. So I mean, just to cut to the chase, I didn't like Midsommar, and the more that I sit with it, the more I actually dislike it. So we'll kill the suspense right there, for the 5 of you who care about what I think about things. I just thought it was meh. I didn't see the point. I thought it fell flat. I thought the acting wasn't as top notch as that's part of what made Hereditary so great for me. The acting was absolutely phenomenal from each and every single person. They truly put themselves into it, and it was just mind blowing. The acting wasn't atrocious in Midsommar, but it just didn't have that same impact. There was moments here and there, for sure. There were at the beginning, especially, and I watched a little bit of an interview with just a very short piece. I didn't watch the whole thing. And they're talking to Ari Aster and the 2 main actors, so the main actress and the main actor. And she says she's young, and she says that some of the stuff that she had to go through with this movie, it was difficult for her. She didn't have a lot to draw on when it comes to kind of grief and getting that upset about things. So it made it difficult for her to some degree. And I mean, you could sense that on the screen. He couldn't kind of use that to the effect that he did in Hereditary. He does a lot of kind of longer takes, longer shots, so just keeping focused on the subject. Sorry, I'm just going to turn this off. The chat doesn't seem to be working anywhere. I apologize if you're there and you're madly talking to me and I'm not receiving it. I'm not seeing anything. So he likes to hold on these shots, and he couldn't as much with her in those moments, because I believe, obviously I don't know, I wasn't there, but I suspect because of her limitations of kind of staying in that, and that alone brings up questions. Why would you want to stay in something like that? Which, again, maybe I'll touch on as well. So it didn't have kind of that going for it. The other thing that really impressed me with Hereditary was there was people in that movie. So first of all, I went into Hereditary completely. I had no fucking idea. I had no idea. I watched a trailer. I had heard that it was really great. I didn't read much about it. I didn't go digging. I watched the trailer and said, "Okay, that looks awesome." Downloaded the movie and started watching it, and got drawn in and started getting more disturbed as the movie went on. But the way I am with most movies, it has to be really exceptionally bad for me to turn it off. Once I've started on something, even if I'm disliking it, I don't really like to uh, just walk out or turn it off. I like to give it a full chance, right? So even when I had a moment of taking a break from it, which thank God I could because I was watching it at home, and going upstairs and just must have looked white faced. And my wife asking me what's going on, and literally just breaking down into tears for a minute, because of the effects, was like surprised the shit out of me. But also because then she was like, "Well, why are you watching?" It's like, well, I can't not see how this ends. You know what I mean? I can't be at this point with it and then walk away from it. So it's very, very difficult for me to do. Um, so that was and on hindsight with that, that's a great, that was a really unique experience. There was nothing that's, things resonate in different ways for everybody, but that one, the way it resonated with me was fantastic. And then it was also one of those movies that days after thinking about it again, and even to this day, thinking back on it, I can honestly say that was an incredible movie. It's an incredible feat of filmmaking in so many ways, storytelling, tension. So, I mean, the biggest thing with that movie that I was touching on before I did this little off-roading, um, the horrible decisions that these people make, you're, as a viewer, you're not quite yelling at the screen in the way of watching a slasher movie with, like, why are you going into that house? It's more like, I think I said it before, it's more like that dream state that you're in when you're having kind of a nightmare, and you keep, in your nightmare, you keep just going forward, and you know that you don't want to, but things keep happening, and you're in it. It's that kind of feeling that you're just powerless. Um, and they're just making a horrible decisions, and it's just leading down this path that's just, what the fuck are you guys doing? So with Midsommar, there was some of that for sure. There's these cues of like, hey, you should probably just not, or hey, you should probably say something, or hey, you should just get the fuck out of there. You know what I mean? And it just didn't have the impact. I didn't have that feeling. I wasn't as invested, I guess, with it. Um, the visuals were pretty incredible. The sets were amazing. The fact that it was a horror movie that takes place during the daytime, I thought, as that part on its own, I thought was my favorite part of it. That idea of not having these visual cues of, here's nightfall, I'm going to tense up because I know something is going to happen because Freddy only appears during the night. That's that sort of thing. And oh my God, thank God it's daylight. I have a chance to breathe. There's going to be some things that'll probably happen, but I'm pretty safe in kind of watching until it gets dark again. With this one, it really did create kind of a tension throughout the whole thing once things started to go south, um, which was pretty early on, which was another part of the problem for me. It seemed to telegraph way too much of like, listen, this is when things are going to start, and clearly we've just introduced those two characters because of X, Y, and Z, and clearly this is going to happen next. So that telescoping of stuff just didn't add to the payoff. And I can't say, I'm trying to think back to Hereditary, if there was anything that really stood out where it was like, oh, well, this is going to happen next. And I really don't think there was. If there was, it didn't stick with me because there was more in that was a surprise. I didn't really know where we were going, and I didn't really see that coming in, or if I did, it wasn't that exact thing This one, there was a few moments where it's like, okay, well, this is going to happen. Cut to 5 minutes later, that happens. It takes me out of it. And there was some practical effects in Midsommar as well too that I thought were really incredibly hokey, and actually took me out of it again. And then on reflection, on thinking about it, it's like, well, would I want that particular scene to look realistic? And the answer to myself was fuck no. Um, so in a way, it's good that it looked unrealistic, but again, it's those moments that really take you out of a story where it's detrimental, where he would have just been better off not showing it. And I mean, again, I am not a person that has any problem with gratuitousness. I mean, look around you. Look at some past videos of things that I enjoy. I have no issue with that sort of thing. It seemed gratuitous in a really negative way, even for me, uh, even with the shit I expose myself to. Um, and it just didn't sit well. And I don't know, man. It just, so much was just so unimpressive. And again, even a couple of days after the fact, sitting and kind of ruminating on it, it's even more impactful that, yeah, no, I just didn't like it. It also seemed to follow a similar-ish arc with Hereditary, as in, we're going to have this drama, some shit is going to happen, we're going to end with an answer, we're going to end with stuff that's similar. Let's just say similar. Again, trying to make sure I steer away from any kind of spoilers. They're not identical by any stretch. It's just, it seemed like there was some beats that occurred both times in it. So I guess the other thing about this one, it was about a year or so since Hereditary came out. So that's two movies back to back, pretty close back to back. I'm really hoping that this is his kind of second album type of movie where expectation is just really high and it's just never going to live up to that expectation. So it's best to just fucking get something out there so you can get onto the third album where you start to get back on track. Because again, it hasn't soured me on him by any stretch. I don't personally believe that you can make something so incredibly amazing and that be an anomaly. It may turn out to be the best in your body of work, but I can't believe that that would be an anomaly where everything you make after that is shit. And don't even say M. Night Shyamalan to me, because I happen to like a number of M. Night Shyamalan's movies beyond The Sixth Sense. Um, uh, so the other thing that kind of stood out to me where I got a bit of anxiety, because there's no doubt I had some anxiety during this. You know, there was that kind of sense of dread of, oh my God, what is going to happen? But it reached a point where it was like, fuck me, what's going to happen? Like, let's just get to it. Let's just get to what's going to happen so I can just be done with this, is where it went to for me. It was a over 2 hour movie. I want to say 2 hours and 20 minutes. And again, something that I'm sure I've talked about before. What happened to fucking editors? What the fuck happened to editors? 90 minutes, people. Come on. Um, if I want to see a 3 hour movie, I'll go to see I'll go to see a blockbuster. I'll go to see a Marvel movie. I'll go to see Godzilla. I mean, give me King Kong versus Godzilla, 3.5 hours long, a spectacle. I'm there. I'm for it. Something like this, I honestly don't see the reason to extend it that long. Um, in my mind, there's a shit ton you could have cut in it, but that's just me. And I would never say that someone should cut it if they. I would just love for some more concise storytelling to happen on the screens. I watched 25 seconds of a video that was recommended to me, and it was talking about um, the lack of the demasculization of male characters in movies, and I couldn't get any further than that, because fuck that premise. I don't think, for me, that wasn't my issue with this movie. He talks about it being his breakup movie, his worst breakup put on screen. I can see elements of that. I can absolutely see how him as the man, and if the man in the movie is representing himself, how he would have felt about himself, and how he would have felt she felt about him. If that makes any sense. When you're in those moments, you're projecting all over the place. And even for the main female character, where some of my anxiety came in was there was some drug use throughout the movie a couple of times. When they took mushrooms, she kind of started going to a dark place and started just kind of panicking. I am a person who has had some bad trips in my life, and I know how that feels. And I've always dealt with a bit of kind of paranoia and that sort of thing. I've always kind of dealt with some of that. So that made me uncomfortable, because in that moment, I knew exactly how she felt, and that made me uneasy, because I know how that made me feel, you know. So I thought that was used pretty well. And again, it's one of these things about, with any kind of horror movie, the ones that work, they really tap into kind of something that affects us all. um, some of the themes in this one, do they affect us all? For sure. I totally believe that they do. I just don't think there was much territory there. Now again, I am completely aware that that's probably for me, and you can click on another video and there's going to be someone who it worked incredibly well for. And I feel like I say this in my videos, but I always feel like I have to. I'm by no means disparaging someone who likes this movie. You're entitled to like and dislike whatever you want. I'm just, for me personally, it just didn't work. And it just ended up frustrating me, it frustrated me because I had such high hopes. And that's my own fault. That is 100% my own fault. Not letting it speak for itself, bringing too much to it, isn't fair to whatever it is you're a part of, whether it's an album, whether it's a movie, whether it's a comic, whatever it is. That kind of stuff can really hurt your viewing experience, right? If you're comparing it to their previous work. Um, and speaking of comparing to previous work, there was a trailer for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the new Tarantino one. And as good as the trailer looks, I am so hesitant about going to see that movie, because I really hated The Hateful Eight. I thought The Hateful Eight was Tarantino's worst film. I really did not like it. One iota. The only thing I liked about it was there was some great new Morricone music in it. And the 15 seconds they spent outside with their extreme widest angle lens you've ever heard in the history of Hollywood, that we're going to go and use, and it's going to be amazing, for the 5 seconds of exteriors before we go into a set that's going to be 4 walls for the next 17 hours. Those moments were really great. The rest of the movie I thought was a complete stinker. So I'm hesitant about it, as good as the trailer looks, because the Hateful Eight trailer looked pretty damn good too. I'm well aware that you can edit a trailer to make look fucking incredible. So I will go to see it, though. That's the other thing, because I am such a fan of Tarantino. There's no doubt that I will see it. The one trailer that kind of surprised me a little bit was It Part 2. The trailer looked pretty good, actually. I haven't seen this newest incarnation of It. I have no interest. I'm one of those guys that doesn't think Stephen King is a good writer. I've never been a fan. This is that video. It seems to be. I don't mean it to be this kind of video. I really, truly don't. I don't usually talk like this about stuff. I don't like giving time for things that I dislike, and trashing things. So I apologize in advance. We'll be back to our regular scheduled programming shortly. So, as good visually as Midsommar was, I just can't say that it's something I'll be revisiting. But even that said, as much as I loved Hereditary, I can't imagine myself sitting through that again. I can't imagine it. I would love to see the extra features. I would love to have the Blu-ray in the collection to kind of see those special features and watch that stuff. But I honestly can't see myself sitting through it again. I did say the same thing about Irreversible, though. The Gaspar Noé, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. His amazing movie, and I ended up watching it I think 3 times uh, because the guy blows me away. His movies really are unlike anything else. Um, Yeah, so that was that, watching it in a theater. Oh, that there was one other thing I was going to touch on. Watching it in the theater with a group of people. Anytime I go to see a horror movie in the theater, which isn't that often, I don't go to the theaters as much as I used to. It's always an extra special experience to see a scary movie with a crowd, because it becomes that kind of roller coaster effect where people are reacting and you just feel it a little more when you hear these people reacting. So the thing with this movie that also kind of stood out to me, that kind of bothered me, was there was just moments where it just got really fucking arty, and arty in a bad way, and arty in a way where me being a fan of some very, very arty farty kind of stuff gets pissed off, because this was the arty farty that's just pure fucking nonsense that people who hate arty movies would think, well, they would think like this is the stereotypical arty bullshit that people who aren't a fan would cite. So that really bothered me, because there was a couple of moments where, myself included, like I couldn't help but laugh because it was so fucking ridiculous. And just hearing people around me just going, what the fuck? And not in like a what the fuck, like a shocked kind of enjoyment way. What the fuck, like what the fuck are we watching? This is so stupid kind of reaction. So that, again, I was one of those people. I couldn't help but laugh, because it was just so silly, just so silly, and such, yeah, glowing review this is. Um, there was some dark humor in it, though, that I thought really worked. There was a couple of scenes that were played, I believe. I sure as hell hope they were played for laughs, because they were legitimately funny. There was a couple of lines from some of the characters that were pretty damn good. But yeah, overall, it didn't do anything for me. And the other thing that I end up leaving with something like this is, like, because of the effect that Hereditary had on me, I'm now going to a theater to see something that may have a similar effect. And it makes me question, like, why am I doing this? Why am I going to a theater that is maybe going to make me upset, going to see something that has the potential to make me really upset for not only today, possibly the next day. Why am I doing this? So that's always a bit of a thing too. Over the years, over these last handful of years, I've really steered away from that sort of thing. I don't, as some of the extreme stuff that I used to enjoy, I just don't, and I don't really seek it out, that the same kind of thing anymore. And I just put that off to my age, and I just don't want to. I just don't want to put myself in those situations. I just don't want to uh, expose myself to that kind of message and that kind of art, as good as it might be. It's just not something that I'm interested in going through anymore. So that stuck with me for sure, walking out of this one. Why am I going to see this? Um, anyway, so if you put any sort of stock into my opinion on things, obviously, if you want to go to see it, by all means, have at her, get in there, go see it. But if you were hesitating, and you were a really big fan of Hereditary, honestly, I really would just save your money. Um, go see Godzilla. Go see something else. Take your kids to see a movie if you have kids. Take your neighbors' kids to see a movie if they have kids. You know what I mean? Like, spend the money somewhere else. That's the only saving grace. I had a bunch of scene points, and I used those to get a free pass to it, so I didn't pay anything for it, which was a definite plus from the whole experience. So that was it for that. The other thing that I was going to just briefly touch on is just future videos. When I was out today picking up this, I had to pick up some magazine bags and boards before I came home, and picked up this little bird. I saw one of the Facebook Winnipeg comic addicts at the book fair, and I had a little chat with him. We've talked many times in the past, but specifically we've talked about kind of podcasts in the past, and possibility of doing even a audio only podcast, or maybe doing a video podcast or something. There was that kind of conversation, and he had said before if I would be interested in kind of setting something up to do a live stream at when they do their next kind of Garage Con, which is their little comic book convention, or yards or garage sale, basically, / comic book convention. So we're going to start conversations. Well, we've started conversations about that. And I mean, the one thing that I'd said to him, or one thing that he'd said to me is like, I wouldn't feel comfortable sitting talking about stuff that I don't really have any experience with. To which I responded, I would never make you do that. My whole thing would be, if you wanted to chat, we would 100% chat about what you wanted to. I don't want to have someone sitting in front of a camera to create some content or to share content with the 15 viewers that I have, and not enjoying it. So we're going to work out some things. He's saying that at this point in his kind of life, he's definitely more of the kind of I don't know if investor is the right word, but he's more along that lines with his collecting these days, which is fine. And as I've spoken about on this channel before, like, I honestly I don't care. You collect however you want to collect. Again, I would never tell someone that they're doing things wrong. If that's what people want to do, it's fine. What do I have up there? I have a CGC slabbed comic. Who the hell am I to say you can't do what the hell you want? I'm flipping that bad boy. I've been keeping my eye on that, by the way, on eBay for sold, like completed and sold sales. There's been a few 7.0s, CGC 7.0s, that have sold for upwards of $250 Canadian. So I'm at the point, as ETA Nick would say, I'm doubling up so far. I'm looking at making more than 2 times what I've put into that book at this point. Even if I sold it today, I'd make a healthy profit on it, which is good. And I was just checking the other day, and I see it slowly inching up, tiny bit higher. Even some raw copies going for those kind of figures. So it's good to see. And what did I see? Did I see a CGC slabbed? I think it was 6.0 or something, going for almost $300. There wasn't, I didn't see, when I looked, I didn't see any recent 7.0 sales. So that kind of excites me, to have that, because I fully intended on selling it anyway. So putting that extra investment into it to flip it and actually make some bucks on it, so I can, who knows, maybe grab myself a copy of Daredevil #1, maybe grab myself a copy or 5 of some first prints of some of these underground comics. I haven't quite decided yet. Doctor Strange #169 would be great, so I could finish off that run, because I'm trying to think of what other runs I'm not completed. I have all the Defenders I want, including the Marvel premiere. Yeah, the only Doctor Strange that I'm missing, or maybe some Strange Tales Doctor Strange, to start putting a dent into that part of my Doctor Strange collection. Who knows? I'm leaning towards an early issue of Daredevil #1, but I haven't quite decided. Whatever happens, though, I'm going to keep it for a while and really just give it a year or so to really see where it goes from this point. But back to what I was talking about. So the conversation surrounding this kind of live chat from the comic convention, I think, would be kind of fun. Or the little comic, I guess the Comic Con, the Garage Con, would be kind of fun. And if other people he was going to talk to some of the other guys who were going to participate in the sale, and if anybody was interested, and I just extended the same thing. I basically said I think that's a great idea. I wouldn't want to do it if it was just going to be me doing this with a bunch of people around. I wouldn't make me feel comfortable whatsoever. I would definitely want someone to kind of chat with. And I would love to hear. I always like hearing why people collect stuff, and maybe their insight into some of this exact kind of thing. I mean, maybe that'll be great for me on slabbing and how they choose books and how they kind of orchestrate their sales online and how they buy these collections to kind of flip those few books. And I don't know, I think there might be some potential there. So stay tuned. Again, it's not 100% confirmed, and uh, I'm not 100% that I want to do it yet. I'm getting there though, because I think it would be kind of fun. I would be going regardless, because I do like these guys, and I like going and seeing them and chatting with them. So I'll be there anyway. And I was thinking I still do have a few books, a small box of stuff that I could probably also bring and just maybe get rid of while I was there, for an added bonus. Um, I haven't really been reading a ton of Eclipse stuff these days, so I don't know when the next Eclipse video is coming. I am still slowly working my way through Camo, but as I've said before, I'm purposefully just reading an issue, and actually lately, just because of time constraints, it's been kind of 2 issues every 3 nights kind of thing. Really trying to, I don't want to just rush through it. I do want to let it soak in. I do want to, not to the extreme that it was when it was first getting published. I think it was a bi-weekly book, if I remember. Yeah, bi-weekly. So I'm just about tonight to read issue number 25. We've had a shift in the cover art with this series. This was a great. This was the last panel, or one of the last panels in issue number 24. And again, I don't want to just spend too much time. It just continues to be a fantastic book. So I'm looking forward to it. But like I said, I want to try to absorb it a little more and sit with it a little more, and kind of recreate what it would have been like a little bit when it was first published. My son and I watched the newest Cartoonist Kayfabe weekly shoot, and they were talking, and I was talking to Jaden about their previous video where they were talking Junji Ito. They're going to be doing a series, and the first video that they talk about one of his stories, I couldn't actually watch the video. I didn't realize this is maybe something that's developed. I'm finding I'm extremely claustrophobic, like extremely. This short story is about these human-shaped holes that are in the side of these mountains, and they're kind of as if someone's standing like a doll, with their arms like this and their legs straight. And apparently there's a hole that's for every single human being, so you just have to find yours, and people are drawn to these and they're going inside them. And even thinking about it starts giving me anxiety, and getting trapped in the middle of these mountains because nobody knows where these go. I couldn't even watch the video of them talking about it. I was feeling so stressed out. So what this did bring up, though, is my son actually heard of Junji Ito because a friend of his, I guess there's something where they have a bunch of his stories animated into kind of half-hour little shorts, which I had no idea about, and his friend has watched a bunch of them, and said that they were really good. So that's something that I'm going to be hunting down tonight, just to see what this show is called, because that idea is amazing to me. So the first thing I did after we talked is I came downstairs, and the Junji Ito stuff that I have, I brought it up and I gave it to him and said, here, check some of this out then. If you're into this stuff, have a read of some of this. He plowed through 2 volumes of Gyo, Gyo, instantaneously. And then has got Uzumaki, the 3 volumes of Uzumaki to read, which I'm excited about because I have the Uzumaki movie. So after he's finished reading it, we're going to sit and watch that movie together. But for those of you Ito fans out there, I know Dr. Monkeybot is one of them. Keep your eyes out. Like I said, I don't know what it's called. I don't know if it's a bunch of different manga artists that they're kind of turning their stories into half-hour shorts, or if it's just a series that's just about him. but I probably worth watching. What else? I think that was about it, peeps. I don't know what I'm doing with these yet, but I've been collecting a bunch of, they're photocopies, don't worry, I'm not cutting things up. I've been collecting a bunch of black and white and color cracks. I haven't figured out what the hell I'm going to do with them yet. Plaster something with them. That's about it. So, like I said, sorry if you were in there in the chat. I was unable to open the chat, so if you were talking to me, I'm sorry. It's not even showing if anybody's watching. None of these things seem to be working. So that's about it. Thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.